And welcome again, Angie, to Terra Talks. We're so glad to have you on this platform.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I was very excited when you asked. So it's great to see
awesome.
your smiling faces.
And also thank you to all the folks who have joined to listen to this talk. Make sure you write your questions down in the chat. So I'll make sure to ask Angie while we go through this discussion. So before we get to the topic, one of the things I wanted to say was, as Dana mentioned, Angie and I have worked together. She was one of my HR business partners in one of my technical leadership roles. And she's really passionate about leadership development. That is something that has always been important to me, and in today's environment becomes even more important. And you see some of the articles being published. 75% of HR is very focused on leadership development in 2024. And so we'll hear a little bit more about that from Angie and how she does it. That is a great way. So whether you're an individual contributor or an HR person, I think from both perspectives, you'll learn something. So Angie, you've had a great career in supporting technical organizations and business organization as an HR leader. Can you define what it means to be a strategic HR business partner and to really have the seat at the table?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, for me, a strategic HR partner simply means understanding the business you're in and the strategic imperatives of the business. Because only when you know that can you really pair that talent strategy to the business and make an impact. And so what does that mean? It means, how do we grow the top line? What's the revenue? What are the levers that move top line? And then how do we grow the bottom line? What's our cost structure? So you really got to understand the business first. And then what is the business trying to solve? What are the key imperatives? And then, when you understand that, you can co-create with the leadership team, which is the other key piece. You have to customize it to be strategic. Strategy is about finding the pain points and then creating a plan around that. And you have to target those initiatives. So, and then one more thing I would add, in addition is the relationships. I think you and I have always had a really good relationship, and I pride myself in building those relationships because everyone's unique. And so it takes time to get to know people on a one-on-one basis. And so I think that's also very critical if you want to be viewed as a strategic partner, is taking the time to build those relationships with the leaders on the team. So a few things there.
Those points are great points. For the audience, can you help explain with an example how do you identify the pain points? What an example of a pain point that you helped identify?
Yeah. So, I think from a talent perspective, so I'll use the example of, a program that we did back in the day, Women's Leadership Program. A pain point for us was, how are we getting the, data science, for example. I was HR business partner for data science, and we didn't have a lot of females, and we were losing people. Attrition was high for women in the STEM space. And so finding that pain point of, wow, how do we build that pipeline and accelerate that pipeline? So by listening and seeing where we're losing talent and, being able to then create a program or a strategy around that. So that's one example, but it can be anything from, a skill, a sales skill, et cetera. But how do we get a project around that to accelerate it is important.
So it looks like pretty much any business problem that you're trying to solve, it is associated with talent.
Absolutely. Almost everything.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's a good point. I have always felt the same way.
Yeah.
That if you don't have the right talent, you can't really solve the problem.
Yeah, so you can't grow.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, you can't grow, you can't innovate, you can't be more operationally effective. All those things play into people. It's really what makes the business.
Yeah. So what pitfalls or hurdles have you experienced that prevents HR from having an equal seat at the table?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think as an HR function, we have had a little bit of a hole to dig out of over the years historically, because HR was started out as personnel. I'm glad to see we have a good result with the poll, a little bit better, but in the past it was, paper pushing, payroll, policy enforcement. And so it's an uphill battle a little bit to get the credibility and get that seat. And then as a collective, unfortunately, that, becomes, when you stay in the weeds, you're the order taker, or you're the can't do this, instead of asking, how can we do this? And so I think all of that has kind of put HR, even the mindset of some people, we can't have a seat, or, they don't see themselves as the partner. But on the flip side, when the business leader sees the HR function, trying to understand the business, going to the meetings and asking questions and learning, that seat opens up. So for me, an obstacle, and I'll give a little bit of an example here. When you asked that question, I thought of an example back in the day. A senior leader at one of my companies, my boss was let go and I was given her job. And he said, hey, you're my new HR leader. Can you come to the meeting and can you just not say anything? Just listen. And I thought to myself at first, I was like, whoo, that's okay. Okay, I can do that. And, I could have been angry about that or frustrated, but instead I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn this into an opportunity, because my predecessor had been very policy, very focused, and just kind of really wanted to talk versus listen. And so I went to the meeting, and now, I look back and we joke about it, this leader and I, because he's still a good friend of mine. But I said, you gave me an opportunity, because I went there, I listened, I watched the dynamics in the room, I paid attention to the pain points, and then I was able to come back and have some credibility when I could speak to, here's how we build the strategy. So the obstacle is really, don't come in, don't say anything. And you have to kind of earn it. But HR can tend to, some of us, again, I want to, say everyone, if you come in with that mindset of, they're not going to let me in, or, I'm not going to be able to do this, then you're not going to be able to get in. But you have to behave as if I have an equal voice, I have value to bring, but you also have to be able to know how to talk the talk. So anyway, that was a little story, a little obstacle I overcame early on. And
yeah, great example.
Yeah.
I like the two-step process that you talk about, is behave as if you have the seat at the table.
Yeah.
That's the first step. And the second step is, when you do ask questions and you do engage in discussion, follow up and execute. And
Absolutely.
the result, you create the track record. And that I know you've been really good at.
Yeah.
This whole thing about keeping quiet at the meeting, I remember getting this advice a long time ago early in my career. I had switched from R&D to marketing, and my GM of marketing said, I'm no longer a technical person, an engineering person, so let the engineers answer the question. The CEO of this organization really respected my advice, so he'd call me in big meetings and ask for my advice. And it was tough, where one leader is telling me not to do anything, the other leader is inviting you to give your opinion. So it can be a tough situation, but I think it hurt me. That advice actually hurt me for a while, because I was very conscious about where I would speak up. But once I got through that hurdle, I realized how bad that advice was.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm glad you did the right thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And it's those kind of opportunities. Sometimes they're a gift, and you just have to be able to discern really, and take the best out of it. And so, yeah, it was good.
We talked a little bit about this. The next question that I'm going to ask is, you have this, I have seen this firsthand from you, but how you can be a strategic partner, but also can change that strategy into a great execution plan. That's a rare skill to have. So some people are really good at taking orders and executing on them. Some people are good at ideas, but there are very few people who are good at both. This is a rare skill. And how do you do that? Tell us your little secret sauce.
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for that. I'll take that as a compliment. I think it comes down to the desire to make an impact, and I'm reminded of this quote of an idea without a plan is just a dream, and an idea, you can have great dreams, great ideas, that's wonderful. But if you don't bring it to life and show that there's impact, then why do it? Our time is very precious. And it's also how you build credibility as an HR leader. If you don't, you can have all the ideas and the plans, but if you don't show that they actually were finished and implemented, then, you lose credibility. So, you don't have to be an expert project manager. I would say having, an Excel spreadsheet and tracking things are the basics, but and funny, my leadership team just came off of our strategic planning session, and it was those two pieces where we started out with, and we used a Gartner model, which was, what is going on in the market with the talent from a talent perspective, what's going on in our company from a business strategy standpoint, and then what is our state of talent today? And we talked about those three buckets, and then we kind of came up with how does that apply to PatientPoint? And we created our strategy, our key priorities based on this. And then we said, who's going to take ownership of each of these priorities, build a plan. The plan doesn't need to be fancy. It can be, here's my 4 bullet points, my owners, and here's my dates. And then a cadence, we review it every month, every quarter business reviews. And we engage the business, which is the other secret sauce, I would say. You can have all the plans you want in HR. You can do all the planning. We tied in the external market, the business, and our state of talent, but we also then get the business review of the plan. What do you guys think of this? What does this work? Will this solve these problems that we've identified specifically to the business? I was just thinking of one other thing that this is a lesson learned that I had early on in my career. The head of HR, the head of the business said, I had done all this planning, it was a global business. I'm in a global role. And he looked at my list and he goes, none of this helps me. I'm telling you guys, I learned with some tough lessons from tough leaders, and it was new in my role. And I said, whoa, he goes, it's not global. So back to the global people on this role call will appreciate. He said, US, not going to affect us outside the US. So my point is, you have to enroll the business in, really getting that buy-in, but then executing with them by showing them the place that where you are in the plan and that you're getting it done. So nothing fancy, but you just have to stay focused on it and making sure it gets done and win together. So
yeah. I like the 3 points that you made. Understand the external market, what's going on, understand the business needs, and understand the talent status at that point and what needs to change as a result. Really good. And keep focused on once you create the action plan.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, for example, we saw, we have a gap in, accelerating speed to market for training on certain roles. We saw that, once we looked at what is our current state in these spaces, we were able to then customize. And that I think is really important too. You have to customize.
Yep. And I know that you have developed and launched leadership programs in a few of your roles. One of them was together. You see a gap, you jump in, you address the business needs. Tell me about the top 3 to 5 aspects that make leadership development programs successful in your experience.
Yeah, I have a few I will share. I would say, and I sound like a little bit of a broken record, but I can't emphasize it more. You have to clearly understand and articulate the business problem you're trying to solve. So in that example I just gave you, we pulled out, 5 to 7 business problems that we knew that we needed to solve. Because if you create a program and you don't identify that problem, you're going to do more harm than good, in my experience. People don't want to go. They think it's just, I got to be there because it exists, not because it's really helping me. So you have to be very, specific. And we talked a little bit about the women's leadership program in data science. And then also here at PatientPoint, we saw a gap in women in STEM functions. And so we said, okay, this is a problem that we want to solve. And it was very clear. Secondly, the data. You have to be able to show data. You can't just say, well, we know this is a problem. We think it's a problem. Well, how do we know it's a problem? And those examples I gave you, for example, we knew that 50% of women in STEM professions at manager level, but once you hit director and beyond that in data science and Nielsen even, it was 0 in the regional leader position. So that was easy to find, and that data was easy to find, but data you got to have. And then third, you've got to have the business leader buy-in. And I don't just mean, yep, this is good, let's go do it. I would say also some skin in the game, meaning how are they going to give either budget, they're going to give their voice, they're going to give their time, what is it they can do and how can you pull them in to help you? And I'll give some kudos to our CTO at PatientPoint because, we knew that there was a gap within data science, or it was technology in general at the senior levels and from a women's perspective. And, saying, okay, our budgets are locked, but, and Gotara was a great example because this came into play kind of after everything was done. And, I said, we got to be creative here. Let's think about this. And he's like, yeah, we definitely have an issue. We shared budget, we moved money around, and we piloted it as well. We decided together, let's see if this really works. And so let's bring a cohort together and pilot it. So I had his partnership. And then similarly at Nielsen, having the global leadership team being very supportive of what we were trying to do and giving visibility to the program, saying, we're going to give these women extra assignments to give them, ability to shine. We're going to give them more coaching and we're going to look at opportunities. So it's bringing awareness to it, but enrolling those leaders in actually doing the work was really important. And then lastly is measuring, making sure that we're tracking everything that we said we were going to do and reporting that out with the business leader. And kudos to Gotara. Again, I'll share with what our cohort did after the program organically. So we're measuring behind the scenes, having iterations with them. How's it going? Is it working? What are you getting from it? So we did our own kind of pilot behind the pilot with great results, but then also organically, they continued on their conversations. And so they're kind of having a multiplier effect with the work they're doing together with the lessons they've learned cross-functionally. So I was thinking about that multiplier. We did a whole session, you and I think, on multiplier back in the day at Nielsen.
Yes.
So yeah, enrolling the leaders and then measuring the results, I think, are really important. And measurement can be things like, are these people growing in their career? Are they getting promoted? Are they getting the bigger comp increases? What are their performance ratings? All those things I think are really important to track to be able to get buy-in to do it again. And at Nielsen, we had 5 years in a row, I think we did the WLP. And kudos to you when you came into the program, broadened it and brought in, men and women, and then had the courage to say, not only are we going to create the program, we're going to literally put some of these women in the seats. And that's when, we put the senior women into head of data science for different regions of the world. So super fun. As you can tell, I'm reminiscing with great memories. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a great example. So if I can summarize for the audience,
Yes.
the steps you took was articulating a business problem, then making sure you have data to prove that that is a problem, getting the business buy-in, meaning their voice, budget, and other things, presenting solutions, then measuring the effect. And if it has a multiplier effect, it's even better. So
absolutely.
So thank you. So you talked about the outcomes. You said that this is how we measure. Now tell me how that connects back to the business. If you have people getting promoted or people retained in the company, how does it impact the business results for you at PatientPoint?
Yeah. So I think by retaining, the talent, once you go through some development programs and you learn those skills, this is institutional knowledge that is very difficult to get outside. The time it takes to, bring people in this revolving door of technical talent, and especially in the STEM fields, it is very difficult to replicate. So it slows down business progress. It slows down projects and timelines and, delivering, because if you have to continually bring people up to speed and get them, integrated into the team and the priorities, it's going to have an impact. So that impacts revenue, that impacts operational effectiveness initiatives. So there's many ways that it slows the business down, and ultimately you're not going to hit your growth numbers or your EBITDA numbers because you're spending CapEx money that you could be applying other places. So there's just so much more, investment that has to happen when you don't bring in the people, and get them up to speed and keep them. And so I just think by developing talent in these ways that we talked about, that is a retention. They want to stay. They see the investment and they're excited about it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I love the way you connected those outcomes, HR outcomes, with business outcomes. And I will say that you shorten the learning curve.
hmm,
You don't lose your intellectual property that walks out the door if you don't retain them and accelerate their careers.
yep,
Your projects get stalled. You lose on timeline of goals. All those things are
yeah,
directly related to projects. And that is such a critical thing. Sometimes, and I've been, my last job was in HR organization, so I kind of watched some of these things. Many times we do an employee survey once a year, and how employees feel is how we measure everything from HR. But what you are saying is it is a continuous process, and you got to be engaged right from the beginning in the strategy session all the way to operating plan and execution in order for you to not only have the seat at the table, but actually making an impact to the business.
yeah, exactly. And keeping the seat at the table. Yeah, very important. Yep.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at questions in the chat. I don't have any. If you have any questions, please please type in. I'd be happy to ask Angie. Um, and so as we are getting towards the end of the Terra Talk here, I would love to, okay, there is a question here I will ask instead of my question. So it's Anna, Anna Helena. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. She says, so HR should be a friend and for employees and for employers.
100%. I thought at first you said or. No, it's both. It has to be you have to be an advocate for both. Because if you really need the employee, the engagement of and the energy that the employee wants to give to the company to keep them, but also you have to have that employer view as well in HR of what's the business need, and then marrying them together is where I think the brilliance is when you are able to. This is a win-win. It's a win-win when employees can grow and the business grows together, and that's really what it means when you bring the two together: strategy and talent initiatives.
So great question, great answer. Yes, yes, and yes.
Yes, yes, and yes. That's right.
So I have the last question. If you still have questions, please keep typing. What advice would you give to the HR leader listening to this, or a business leader in our audience, to launch a successful leadership development program to upskill?
Yeah. So I'll reinforce a few of my points and maybe add a few new ones, but being crystal clear about the problem you're trying to solve, back to bringing in the data, et cetera, and customizing the solution. And I'm emphasizing the word customize because I've seen too many initiatives go where it is just, we need to do this program, everyone go. It doesn't mean it needs to be that way. You need to focus on the function or the area of the business that needs the attention and customize the solution. And then you need to make sure that the business leaders are part of it. And I also want to emphasize this fun aspect. That's maybe something we forget, that we take ourselves so seriously. Have fun, create games, competitions, be creative in your promotion. Recognize the people that go through this, promote their growth, and reward them. I think is really super important for success. And then stretch the people that go through it as well. That expands the business, but also stretch them in ways that grow their career so they see the value. And lastly, I would say, don't forget to make the leaders shine as well, because you've partnered with the leadership team. You now have a huge successful result. So give them the ability to shine by showing those results and promoting the success that you've had together. I think is really important, to continue the growth and making sure that you keep that seat at the table. And, ultimately, when you don't have to think about whether you have a seat or not, that's a win. We often say, how do we get the perception of HR to not be, oh, HR's in the room? And we were joking about this at my company recently with a whole event, a national sales meeting. And I said, when the day comes where people don't see it as HR's in the room, HR's at the table, it's, my Angie's at the table, she's my partner, then that's a real win. And by the way, HR people are a lot of fun. You can attest to that. Right. So
Absolutely. So I'm going to summarize the advice you gave.
Okay,
Have crystal clear problem, customize as needed, make sure business leaders are bought in, have some fun while you're doing this. Make sure you are constantly promoting the individuals to get some stretch assignments or other things that helps expand their role. And the leaders who actually help you do that, make sure they shine, use the success metrics,
got it.
just like you guys have at PatientPoint. So thank you for that, Angie, and thank you for being a great partner. I think we are learning together a lot, and hopefully we continue to raise the bar for talent at PatientPoint and other companies like PatientPoint.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're very grateful. Great program.
All right, thank you, Angie, and I think our time is up. Thank you for your
Okay.
time. And I want to thank everybody else who joined on the call. If you're already a member, great. If you're not, sign up at Gotara.com. You'll have people like Angie giving you advice. So why not do that?
Thank you.
As
Yeah,
we
a lot of
say,
fun.
hashtag spiral up. All right.
I love that.